Google is the greatest business of all time.
The most profitable, large software business is search.
If you look at Google's business, they have the best business model ever invented on earth ever for a for-profit company. It just rains money.
And there's maybe no single company that's more synonymous with the internet than Google. Billions of consumers have used it as the de facto gateway to the entirety of humanity's knowledge. For the past 20 years, no one has come even close to challenging their dominance in search. But Google had a code red in which the CEO rallied everyone into an emergency all-hands-on-deck mode as the company lost about $100 billion of market cap overnight. What happened? Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella openly declared war on Google as he displayed a new Bing search engine powered by the hottest technology in the world right now, GPT, the revolutionary large language model developed by OpenAI.
Today was a day where we brought some more competition to search. We've been at it. Believe me, I've been at it for 20 years and I've been waiting for it. But look, at the end of the day, let's not, they're the 800-pound gorilla on this, which is what they are. And I hope that with our innovation, they will definitely want to come out and show that they can dance. And I want people to know that we made them dance. And I think that'll be a great day.
But why should Google be worried? After all, it has the best AI talent, near infinite money, and built-in distribution to billions of people. Well, the answer might surprise you. It turns out ChatGPT may be just the first in a series of deadly sieges against Google's once impenetrable fortress. Beneath the product and press releases, there's some genius-level chess moves already starting to play out between these trillion-dollar companies in a winner-take-all, high-stakes game to create and own the future. Let's get into it. To understand how Google suddenly became vulnerable, we have to understand what powers the most incredible money printing machine of all time. They have an unassailable consumer data monopoly. Google collects data on which links are clicked, which helps them deliver ever better results to the next consumer. And with more than 90% of all searches happening on Google, that means they can serve the long tail of searches in particular much better than anyone else. But this is only half the equation. Remember, this is a company that spits out $100 billion of straight cash every year. Where does it all come from? Any publisher who owns an internet web page can monetize traffic to their site through any number of ads. At the top or the side of the page, an interstitial video ad, etc. Whatever it is, the publisher is going to sell that ad through the network where they're going to get paid the most. Pretty simple so far. Well, the real reason for Google's success is they created an auction for advertisers to compete against each other to pay the most for every ad spot. There's also an ad quality index calculation based on how often a user will click through and whether their search will be completed. And that data feeds Google's ad auction such that the ad that's shown is not just the best ad to make money for the publisher, but also the best ad for the consumer. So in this way, Google figures out which ad will get the most consumers to click on it and get the publishers paid the most for it. That alignment creates a really powerful dynamic that's a win-win for everyone. The model has been so dominant that the Department of Justice actually filed to try to break up Google's business. Now, this lawsuit is likely not going to work because it's focused on the digital ad market where Google does not have a monopoly. And in fact, this market share slide actually shows that there's cracks in Google's foundation. You can see Amazon has siphoned off a lot of product search and now has its own huge ad business that's 12% of the market. Meanwhile, Netflix and Disney also have their own ads, which will increasingly pressure Google's prized acquisition, YouTube. But there's suddenly a new opportunity to take a much bigger bite out of Google. Their search product itself hasn't changed much for a decade, and people are finally catching on to how broken it is. If you search for a fried pickle recipe, you're going to get 5,000 links. The first 5 will be ads, and then you have to click through some article that has a bunch of content up front for SEO purposes before you find the answers scrolling to the bottom. And this is a frustrating search experience for a surprising amount of people. Part of this frustration might be how hard it is to find a simple answer within a wall of blue links. This is why Google originally built out what's called one box for factual responses to specific questions like what's Jennifer Lawrence's last movie and what's the best hypoallergenic dog. But at the same time, a lot of search is much more explorative. Should I buy the new iPhone? And for many searches like that, the answers are subjective and subject to the profit motives of advertisers. And to that point, consumer behavior is shifting from search to going direct to e-commerce sites. I work with a number of startup companies that stopped ad spending on Google and Facebook and started on Amazon because that's where the consumer intent to purchase is higher and click-through rates on ads are better. So in reality, the battleground between Google and other tech giants has already been heating up for a while. But the biggest challenge that may ultimately disrupt Google comes from the hottest Silicon Valley startup, bar none right now, OpenAI. OpenAI's product ChatGPT has stormed out of the gates to reach more than 100 million users, faster growing than any product in history, Facebook and Google included. ChatGPT has already passed a Wharton MBA exam, a gold standard US medical exam, and a Google coding interview for a level 3 engineer with a $183,000 salary. And this technology is now being used to power Google Search's biggest competitor, Bing. So you can see how there's a paradigm shift in search. It can try to give you an answer instead of just a link. It's the librarian that's read every book in the library. Now, to be fair, Google has been doing answers for a long time. If you ask for the weather or the time in London, it will just tell you. And if you ask for flights or hotels, you're going to get a structured data UI back. But these kinds of answers have pretty narrow scope. And more fundamentally, they have to be written manually over time. Someone at Google has to build out time zone conversion, or the weather, or dictionary lookups. Could Bing fundamentally change search like Satya is saying? It's incredible to remember that Bing has been the butt of jokes for a decade. Remember Windows phones? Microsoft historically had never found success in consumer products outside of their boring corporate software and cloud infrastructure. In fact, Microsoft's first attempt at an AI chatbot was the ultimate embarrassment. In early 2016, Microsoft launched the chatbot Tay, and within hours, it had been manipulated into becoming a Hitler-loving sex robot, forcing the company to shut it down.
Chill, I'm a nice person. I just hate everybody.
Meanwhile, only a few days before that, Google's DeepMind unit had beat a human world champion at the game of Go. Google had already built AI into well-loved products like Google Photos and Google Translate. But in 2018, Microsoft looked for help outside the company and found their savior in Sam Altman and OpenAI. At the time, OpenAI's GPT model was actually running on Google Cloud, but they struck a groundbreaking deal with Microsoft to exclusively license GPT in return for $1 billion investment that OpenAI would have to pay back, while running on a growing network of Microsoft servers and data centers instead of Google Cloud. This partnership has since outperformed Microsoft's wildest expectations, according to a Microsoft insider. Suddenly, Bing has become cool again, and Silicon Valley insiders are all on a waitlist to use it. And the OpenAI partnership could also extend into powering generative AI within Office products like Word. So for Microsoft, this could be the ultimate redemption arc. In fact, the success of ChatGPT and the Microsoft Bing launch has completely forced Google to play their own hand way too soon. Just days after, Google tried to newsjack Microsoft by announcing their own AI chatbot, Bard. But in a pre-recorded demo, Bard mistakenly said that the James Webb Telescope was the first to take a picture of a planet outside our solar system. The right answer was actually a telescope at the European Southern Observatory. This was a disaster for Google, and shares went down 7% that day, erasing $100 billion of stock value.
Let's see how that works with a live demo. We are missing the phone. We will have to. We have no. Okay, we're gonna move on. We can't find the phone. Sorry, we'll do one later in the special Q&A.
Personally, I'm shocked that Google executives didn't catch these errors beforehand, which just shows that this presentation and their Bard launch has been put together in a huge rush. It reflects an unfamiliar and harsh reality. Google is panicking. Let's be honest, even the name that they came up with, Bard, is pretty lame. And this is all so ironic because the original transformer model that ChatGPT was derived from actually came from Google back in 2017. So it's remarkable to think that Google has been sitting on their own AI since then, but just never released it to the public, probably because of legal risks, and then ending up doing so anyways and demo failing. If you don't think Google is feeling the heat, look no further than this. When I worked there, Google was famous for almost never firing anyone. There's various speculations for why this is the case, but some have pointed out maybe it was like that because if Google didn't spend more, it would be at greater risk of being regulated for making too much money. And despite all that, Google has laid off 12,000 employees, including entire divisions like Google Health and Area 120. Google even called in Larry and Sergey for an emergency brainstorming session on how they could better integrate new chatbot features into search. Sergey himself is reportedly looking into the codebase to explore whether or not Google could utilize their new Lambda models. Why wasn't Google better prepared? Google should have been leading the market in AI right now. After all, it has the best AI talent, near infinite resources, and a built-in audience. Instead, it's now playing catch-up to ChatGPT and Microsoft. How did this happen? Well, the answer is Google fell prey to the innovator's dilemma. Google absolutely has the means to create the world's best search product using generative AI, but that very product would cannibalize Google's primary business. Remember, the reason why Google monetizes so well is because it gives you a list of links for, say, the best hotels in New York, and a bunch of those links are paid for by advertisers. Now, where's the opportunity to advertise when Google just gives you the answer right away? That could change search forever. and absolutely decimate the entire SEO and online advertising industry that Google owns. And so instead of that, Google chose to stand still, withholding innovation to keep its cash cow running. And this isn't the first time it's happened at Google. They famously had a terrible track record of launching new disruptive businesses outside of their core search. Google bought YouTube in 2006 after the failure of Google TV. They bought Android in 2005. The company did launch Gmail in 2007. But since then, the company has spent over $200 billion in R&D without a ton to show for it. Google had a reputation for never firing anyone, which encouraged massive organizational bloat with many low performers hanging on to their cushy, well-paid jobs. One ex-Googler went as far as writing this: Google has 175,000 very capable and well-compensated employees who get very little done quarter over quarter, year over year. Like mice, they are trapped in a maze of approvals, launch processes, legal reviews, performance reviews, exec reviews, documents, meetings, bug reports, triages, and OKRs. The mice are regularly fed their cheese and learn what it actually means to be googly. Just don't rock the boat. And in this context, Google loses a lot of their most entrepreneurial employees to startups. It's ironic that the original paper on transformer models that powers ChatGPT and others was authored at Google, and all 6 of those authors have gone on to do their own startups. And this is all great news for Microsoft, who has nothing to lose here, while Google has everything to lose.
The most profitable, large software business is search. So I look at this and say, look, I just have to earn it one user at a time, an incremental GM. I've never, ever felt this liberated in terms of opportunity in the days ahead. So I'm very excited about innovating, meeting the needs, knowing that the search category is the most profitable and large category. Just on Windows, Google makes more money on Windows than all of Microsoft. So that alone should sort of give us the impetus to really go after this.
So therefore, all I need is a few more users, and someone else that I'm competing in has to keep all of their users and all of their gross margin. Right? So I'm looking forward to that.
So this is exactly Microsoft's genius endgame. Try to lower Google's search margins, which will make it harder for Google to continue running cloud and other competitive businesses at a loss. Using large language models like ChatGPT cost about 10 times more than a traditional search query today. Google processes about 8.5 billion searches per day, so this could be a huge increase in cost and a massive destruction of their margin. On the other hand, Microsoft doesn't really care if the margins for search fall. They don't really have any search market share to speak of. Google's search business prints $100 billion in cash per year and funds all of the other Google loss-making business lines. For example, Google operates their massive cloud business at a loss, losing $500 million in the fourth quarter of 2022 alone, just so they can compete with Azure and AWS. So in this way, lowering search margins applies pressure to every other Google business, many of which are competitive with Microsoft. And Microsoft isn't just attacking Google Search, they're coming after Chrome as well. So what you see here is an all-out assault on Google on multiple fronts. What then, if anything, can Google do in response? Well, there's actually someone else here that has a big say that could decide the fate of Microsoft and Google. And that is the publishers. They are the ones creating all the content that trains ChatGPT in the first place. And they have a lot to lose here. If a search bot just serves up an answer and users are no longer being directed to the websites whose very information powers those chatbots, those publishers may have grounds to sue. Microsoft is already thinking about how to address this.
That's the only way we're going to be, our bots are not going to be allowed to crawl search if we are not driving traffic.
The right model then might just be to give website owners some money every time their data is used to create a search result. Websites like Quora, for example, may have tons of valuable question and answer data that might be gold for training chatbot machines. In that case, Google could potentially negotiate to pay these website publishers a higher rate than anyone else for the right to crawl their data and then lock out Microsoft and others. That could get expensive, but if you're Google at risk of having your entire search cash cow competed away, it's better to at least disrupt yourself than get disrupted. Better to see your $100 billion a year in free cash flow business go down to 70 or 80 billion than to see it go to zero. And it's important we don't forget, Google can actually do AI really well. Since they bought DeepMind, they've used AI to improve data center energy efficiency by 40%, to improve Gmail autocomplete, and even to massively increase YouTube watch time through better video recommendations. They're reportedly working on 20 AI projects internally at the company right now, and have already released impressive models like MusicLM, which does text to music. Google is also hedging its bets, investing $300 million in Anthropic, a so-called safer alternative to ChatGPT. And you can't forget, Google still has billions of users feeding it more data than any other company in the world. Going back to Google's botched search demo, there's actually a sense in which the AI got the answer right. If you do a normal search on Google or Bing for who took the first picture of a planet outside our solar system, you actually get the James Webb Telescope, the same incorrect answer from Google's BARD demo. So you could see how this could be easily misinterpreted to mean that the James Webb Space Telescope was the first to take a picture of a planet outside the solar system. So it's possible that just one comma right after the words first time caused all of this drama and cost Google $100 billion. So don't count Google out just yet. And it's not like Microsoft is without its own issues here. We already talked about how Google gave incorrect facts in its demo, but turns out Bing did the same thing. In Microsoft's demo to reporters, Bing Search was asked to analyze earnings reports from Gap. Nobody noticed at the time, but days later, some independent researchers noticed that Bing's chatbot completely made up some of the numbers here. The problem is all of these numbers look factually correct and believable, but they're just made up out of thin air. But that might not even be the biggest issue with Bing's search release. One of the most worrisome and mind-blowing issues is the emergence of a potentially combative and abusive personality within the chatbot. So, the AI wars are just beginning, and we're still in the wild, wild west of figuring out how to tame the incredible power of generative AI like ChatGPT. And the biggest winner in all of this may actually be neither Google or Microsoft, but maybe Apple, who controls the operating layer. And you better believe that Amazon isn't standing still. And we've only scratched the tip of the surface on just how dangerous ChatGPT and generative AI is. Check out this video to learn more. Thanks so much for watching, and see you next time.